Welcome back to part 11 of top 10 amazing creations in Cities Skylines. In this episode, we will focus on mountain towns. Stick around to the end of the episode to hear from some special guest creators. Would you like to win yourself a Cities Skylines DLC? I'm giving away 3 codes to 3 winners for any DLC of your choosing. To enter, simply head on over to bit.ly/tmcitiesdlc and follow the instructions. Or click the link in the description. Fretaws Mountain City is simple on the surface, using rural, small-town European architecture for the small gridded town. However, it's not the city itself that is impressive here, but the mountains themselves. Fretaws has constructed a beautifully realistic alpine mountain scene with bumps and curves galore. The place feels very natural and very isolated, as you'd expect from a small mountain town. Similar to Fretaws' creation, Joseph Crow has also built a small alpine city within the mountains. Joseph Crow's taken it to another level, with a sheer detail is put into the build. The inclusion of water is interesting here, as it blends 2 opposites together with the dark greens of the nature and the greys and blacks of the rock, alongside the deep blues of the lake. The lake setting also allowed Joseph more room for creativity and the ability to create one of my favourite features, the rocky island, which wouldn't be out of place as the setting for a scene in James Bond or Hitman. Rhinestone Island is no stranger to this series, one of the best builds within Cities Skylines that features a multitude of incredible areas. In this episode, we'll focus on the mountains and waterfalls Fluxtrance has built. Waterfalls are not something you see all that often within the game, as they don't come pre-built and are incredibly difficult to pull off without looking like water awkwardly running down a bent piece of earth. Fluxtrance has managed to make the waterfall look majestic, with the rock detailing really selling the piece as a believable, natural majesty. Scepterpan City is without a doubt one of my favourite cities ever featured on this list. It boggles my mind how few views the creation series has. Link in the description, please go give it some love. The city features shades of Los Angeles, with the blending of rolling hills and tropical beaches, not to mention the city's own version of the Hollywood sign. However, it's different, very different to most cities I've come across. The mountain the city is built into is desert rock, reminiscent of the Australian outback. The heavy use of water is absurd, but in a good way. Canals, lakes and islands can be found all over the city, often in unique and interesting designs. Some waterways are built into interesting grid patterns, while others surround raised residential areas reminiscent of Venice. Everything comes together to make an interesting, unique, and fascinating mountain town. Comton is as far away from the mean streets of LA as you can get. This picturesque German mountain village gives you no attitude as you explore its cute wooden shacks that litter the winding single-track roads across the mountains. Dr. Com's use of older-style medieval European architecture makes Compton's mountain district a really pretty and quaint-looking build. This week we are pleased to be joined by two guests, the first of which is Prez discussing Aramore.
Well, usually when I create a new city, I look around the United States, look for geography that I like, and look for cities within that sort of area that I find interesting. With Aramore, it was a little bit different. I didn't really base it off a specific city, more like just the general feel of the Pacific Northwest, and I feel like I could have done it a lot better in terms of the buildings I chose and stuff, but I mean, overall, I wanted to do geography that was similar to Seattle's, except a much smaller scale city. That's sort of what we ended up with as well. So, I mean, I think the trickiest part was just the geography is really difficult to work with in the Pacific Northwest, and I sort of made the map from scratch, and I was really bad at making maps, and I sort of still am, so that was not easy, and I ended up not using Terrain Party, which I really should have used Terrain Party to get the geography to look right. So I ended up really completely terraforming the entire map when I was actually in-game throughout the series, and that's where we ended up with those snow-capped mountains and stuff. I think it's probably the snow-capped mountains, actually. Those were my favorite thing on that map, and if you look in the final cinematic video for Aramore, which I'm really still, I love that video, the snow-capped mountains just look so good and so Pacific Northwesty, but it was honestly, it felt like a little bit of a mishmash. They just threw in some snow-capped mountains on the side of the map, and some islands, and the geography could have been a lot more realistic. So in terms of the question, what would you do differently next time? Yeah, I mean, I would probably use Terrain Party. I would try to go in and use some real terrain because I don't like the way the geography ended up. But for the time, I think I did pretty well. It was my best city at the time. I like New Windsor more now, obviously, but I still do really love that city.
In terms of views, Corrales' varied cities must be the most watched and viewed cities within the game. New Waterpoo is the flattest mountain town on this list, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. Corrales has enabled himself much more room to work with for creativity. Unlike many other mountain town builds that find themselves with tiny pieces of land to work with, New Waterpoo has a sprawling city, complete with airport and harbour tucked into the mountain range. Infrastructionists really did challenge themselves in this build. We're used to their epic builds like Project Japan that cover huge areas and feature a large array of unique features. However, in this build, they've decided to create a small European mountain town. This has been executed flawlessly. All allocated space has been used effectively, nothing feels out of place, and the level of planning and design in this build is so clear. Design Candy's sprawling epic features pretty much everything you can think of. While this build is mountain adjacent, as opposed to being a city within the mountains, it still features a wonderful sculpted mountain that dominates as the backdrop as you browse many of the city's best features, including the Mammoth Airport and the incredible golf course. Finally, today we have our second guest, $2.20, talking about his build, Marble Mountain.
G'day guys, my name's $2.20 and this is my map, Marble Mountain. I've designed this map to be very mountainous and very diverse with the types of landscape so that I can try to create some really interesting types of landscapes hidden in between each mountain. So the mountains really act as barriers between each type of landscape. So we've got deserts and forests and oceans. It's really quite a diverse area. The whole reason why I've created a landscape like this is I want to really focus on small towns and infrastructure that sort of interconnect with one another in such a huge map, and have such unique differences depending on what type of landscape they sit in.
Thanks to everyone for watching yet again. I was absolutely thrilled by the response to the last episode, as it seems you really all did enjoy the sci-fi focus. The next episode is due out in 2 weeks, and will feature 10 cities made in vanilla cities without the use of any mods. If you have a theme that you'd love to see, then please do let me know. I'd also like to remind everyone that I have a Patreon if you'd like to support me. My first 3 supporters will unlock a special perk by being able to select a theme for an upcoming cities, prison architecture, or perhaps even a Minecraft episode. We'll see, that's up to you. Again, thanks for watching. Until next time, bye!